It all started with a moment that, at the time, seemed completely ordinary. Erika once shared a story, a quiet, almost spiritual memory. She said she was on a pilgrimage in Israel with her mother, a meaningful trip, a reflective journey. And then, in what she described as a random instant, she turned around and noticed someone who looked familiar. That someone was Charlie. At least that's how the story goes. Back then, it sounded like one of those rare, almost poetic coincidences, the kind people love to believe in. Two lives crossing paths in a distant place, long before fate officially brings them together. But today, that same story is being looked at very differently. Because now people aren't just listening to it, they're analyzing it, questioning it, and in some cases, completely rejecting it. Online, the conversation has shifted dramatically. What was once seen as a romantic origin story is now being picked apart piece by piece. Small details that once felt insignificant are suddenly being treated like clues. Even Erika's emotional appearances have come under scrutiny. Some viewers claim her tears feel forced. Others say her tone doesn't match the gravity of the situation. And while none of this proves anything on its own, it has added fuel to a growing fire of suspicion. Because when people start questioning the emotions, they start questioning everything. At the center of it all is a relationship that once looked like a fairy tale, Charlie and Erika. From the outside, it seemed perfect. A chance meeting, a deep connection, a whirlwind romance that quickly turned into marriage. But when you slow the timeline down, it starts to feel unusually smooth. Too smooth, some would argue. According to their own story, it began with what was supposed to be a simple job interview in New York City. Erika was being considered for a role, professional, straightforward, or at least that's how it started. Because by the end of that meeting, everything had changed. Charlie reportedly told her, "I'm not going to hire you, I'm going to date you." One sentence, and just like that, the entire trajectory shifted. At the time, people saw it as bold, unexpected, even romantic in a spontaneous kind of way. Now, that same moment is being re-examined under a completely different light. Because here's the thing, Erika later revealed that the New York meeting wasn't actually their first encounter. She claimed she had already seen Charlie before, during that trip to Israel. Again, she described it as coincidence, but for many watching from the outside, that's where the story begins to feel a little too perfect. A chance sighting in a foreign country, a sudden reappearance through a mutual connection, a job interview that turns into a relationship almost instantly, and a romance that escalates faster than most people can process. Individually, each detail might seem harmless. Together, they start to form a pattern, and that pattern is exactly what has fueled one of the most controversial theories surrounding this entire story. The idea that none of it was random, that Erika's presence in Charlie's life may have been intentional, strategic, even planned. Some online discussions have gone as far as labeling it a honeypot scenario, a term often used to describe relationships formed for influence, access, or control. It's a serious claim, and to be clear, there is no confirmed evidence proving it, but that hasn't stopped the theory from spreading, because for those who believe it, the relationship wasn't just about love, it was about proximity, access, and influence behind the scenes. According to various accounts, things inside Charlie's professional world began to shift over time, not in obvious ways, but subtly, quietly. People started noticing changes during events, staff members being replaced without clear explanations, new individuals appearing seemingly out of nowhere. They weren't loud or disruptive. They didn't take over. They just observed, watched, adjusted things in small ways that over time started to add up. Internal systems were reportedly rerouted. Access requests were made that didn't quite align with official roles. Background checks were repeated on individuals who had already been cleared. On paper, none of it looked alarming, but in practice, it felt off, like something was happening just beneath the surface. At the same time, Erika's role appeared to be evolving. Some insiders claim she had already become acting with executive authority before Charlie's passing, giving directions, making decisions, speaking on behalf of the organization. For some, it was confusing. For others, it was concerning, because it raised a difficult question. How much control did she actually have? And when did that control begin? Meanwhile, Charlie himself was reportedly going through his own struggles. According to people close to him, he had started expressing frustration, not publicly, but privately. There were claims that he felt pressure building behind the scenes, that he was being influenced in ways he wasn't comfortable with. Some say he had even begun pushing back, questioning decisions, challenging people with power. If that's true, it suggests a growing tension, one that may have been invisible to the public, but very real behind closed doors. Then came the turning point, Charlie's sudden passing, a moment that shocked everyone. And in the immediate aftermath, things moved quickly, very quickly. Within days, Erika was announced as the new CEO. To some, it seemed like a natural transition. To others, it felt too fast, too prepared, as if the decision had already been made before the moment arrived. And that perception only added to the growing sense that something wasn't quite right. From there, the story only became more complicated. People began looking deeper into Erika's background, and what they found raised even more questions. Reports suggest that her family had long-standing connections to defense and government-related sectors, not casual connections, serious ones. Business ventures tied to federal contracts, involvement in industries linked to national security. Again, none of this is inherently suspicious on its own, but when placed alongside the broader narrative, it adds another layer of complexity, another set of connections, another reason for people to ask questions. Then there's the nonprofit work. On the surface, it appeared to be humanitarian, focused on helping children overseas, a positive mission, one that painted a compassionate image. But some critics have pointed out overlaps that they find difficult to ignore: the location of certain operations, the proximity to sensitive areas, the alignment with networks that intersect with government-linked activities. To be absolutely clear, there is no verified evidence suggesting wrongdoing, but the overlap itself has been enough to spark debate. Because in stories like this, perception matters just as much as proof. Even personal details have become part of the discussion. Leaked messages, though unverified, allegedly show Charlie expressing emotional distance in the relationship. At one point, he is said to have told a family member that he no longer felt like he truly knew Erika. Friends reportedly noticed changes in him as well: a shift in mood, a sense of isolation. Again, these are claims, but taken together, they paint a picture that feels very different from the fairy tale narrative people once believed. And then came the public appearances after his passing, moments that were watched closely, analyzed repeatedly. Some viewers felt Erika's demeanor didn't reflect grief in the way they expected. They described her as composed, controlled, even upbeat at times. Others argue that grief looks different for everyone, and that it's unfair to judge someone based on outward behavior alone. Both perspectives exist, but the debate itself has kept the spotlight firmly on her. The memorial added another layer to the story. Instead of being held in Charlie's home state, it took place in Arizona, a location tied closely to Erika's family. That decision raised eyebrows, as did reports that certain family members were absent. No public statements, no visible presence. Just silence. And in situations like this, silence often speaks louder than words. Since then, the theories have only continued to grow. Some believe it's all coincidence, a series of unrelated events that, when viewed together, simply appear more suspicious than they actually are. Others believe something much bigger is at play, a network of influence involving powerful individuals, strategic relationships, and carefully managed narratives. The truth, still unknown. But one thing is undeniable. This story has changed. What began as a love story is now something else entirely. A mystery, a puzzle, a narrative filled with unanswered questions and competing interpretations. And the more people dig into it, the more complicated it becomes. Because every new detail seems to lead to another question. Every explanation opens the door to another possibility. And every piece of information, whether confirmed or speculative, adds to a story that refuses to settle into a simple conclusion. So now we're left with a choice. Do we see this as coincidence? Or do we consider the possibility that there's more happening beneath the surface? That what looks like chance might actually be design? Whatever the answer is, one thing feels certain. This isn't over. Not even close. Because as more voices come forward, as more details emerge, and as more people begin to connect the dots, the picture will continue to evolve. And when the full truth finally comes out, whatever it may be, it's going to change everything. So the real question is, what do you think is really going on here? Is this just a story that's been overanalyzed by the internet? Or is it something deeper, something more intentional, slowly revealing itself over time? Because one way or another, the truth has a way of surfacing. And this story, it's still unfolding.